Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm going a little out of order on subscriber requests just because I thought this one made sense. A little bit of a tips and tricks guide on the KpfPz right now. If any of you guys are deciding to buy it or have bought it, I have a tips and tricks playlist, so if you're struggling with a tank, shoot over there, but let's dive into the KpfPz 70. Honestly, a great tank, my second choice out of the bundle. The thing that makes it a bit tricky to play with is you're a heavy, but you don't have really any hull armor. Your turret armor is okay, it's decent, you'll see it in this, but you don't have a lot of gun depression. So the thing you have to keep in mind with this tank is it's much more of a flat ground heavy. You got to keep it a little bit more on flatter ground, but in areas not so flat, just a little hilly, and you'll see what I mean is just going through a couple of these replays. So I was really hoping to crest that hill. That Sidewinder was doing an excellent job spotting, and I was really hoping to put a hesh round right through that Waffenträger, but you'll see exactly what I mean here. I'm not putting myself in a position that requires a ton of gun depression because that's not, the KpfPz just does not have that. I'm just putting myself in an area that's a little flat, just a little hilly, but just enough where I'm able to keep myself protected. I can poke my cannon, my turret out just a little bit, using a little bit of that depression it has and being able to get those shots from a position very effectively that is able to give me multiple angles and views on the enemy and where they are. So that is like the one thing that's a little tricky, because with a heavy you're typically thinking, oh, I've got good hull armor, or I can side scrape, and the KpfPz is not really quite a tank you can do that with, because even if you try to pop out in front and you're trying to angle to bounce, your hull is just not strong enough, and most of the time you're just going to get pinned. And if you're coming across the KpfPz to fight it and you're trying to side scrape, there's an area just between where the turret turns and the butt of the tank. It's just raised a little bit. There's a lip right there, and you can hit that area and just get a pen. So the tank itself is much more capable in areas that are more flat, but not like town flat where you're completely side scraping. More of just like where there's tiny bits of hills that you can protect your hull and use a little bit of gun depression and poke your turret out, but not putting yourself so much in one opposite side or the end or the other. You're not wanting to put yourself in a position that requires a lot of gun depression, because this thing just doesn't have it, and you don't want to be putting yourself in a position that just like, you know, relies on side scraping or is just completely flat and you're open because you really don't have a lot of armor. So that's where that tank can be a little tricky to play. But the thing is some of the pros about the KpfPz is you've got decent maneuverability. So just like here, I was able to quickly kind of move up, get myself to an effective position that Sidewinder was able to spot. And even if he wasn't, I wanted to kind of get into this area because it's a little hilly. It's also got some flat areas kind of around it, and I'm wanting to utilize that terrain to keep my hull protected. And you'll notice there's these little slants on the hill, and I'm using those little slants on the hill to drive up and help my gun depression, help get my cannon down. So as I'm trying to get that Yagaroo, I would kind of go off on that hill on the right just a little bit to help my gun depression, and then I would back off. And if I was trying to get a tank off on the right hand side, then I would kind of drive up on the left hand a little bit so that I can get my gun depression down on that side. So anyway, if that makes sense. So anyway, here's a second replay, KpfPz 70. So here we're going up the hills. That's actually great. That's where the KpfPz is going to be a bit more effective than just completely going to town. So here I am, I'm trying to push up, kind of work with the team. I'm paying attention to the map, seeing where our team is. We're starting to spot them. I'm trying to get in positions as quickly as possible that I can get up on the enemy. Now, I really do have to kind of use my team, because The thing about having a higher alpha damage gun is your reload, it takes a little bit longer. So the thing about playing the KpfPz is you want to get in areas that are closer to the enemy, but you have the support from your team, so that while you're in the midst of that reload, that you have your team to support you so that you can reload, and then you can pop out and get those shots. Now, here I'm noticing a lot of the enemy is on this left-hand side, and I'm struggling because I don't quite have the depression to like look down this way and get shots, but I want to support this IS-5 over here on my left. I don't want him to get rushed, so if they start to come around here kind of like they're doing, I want to be able to get some shots off. So it's kind of leaving us in a little bit of a tricky situation here. And so I'm trying to be very aware of my surroundings. And just with any tank, you want to make sure you're not tunnel visioning. You want to be very aware. I'm always paying attention to what's happening on my left, what's happening in front of me, where my team is. Because if you know that, it'll help you make decisions as you're trying to know where to go next or where to shoot next. And here, that T-34, I wanted to back up because I wanted to protect my hull and have just my turret exposed, because that would help utilize the armor. That's where the KpfPz armor is the strongest, is just in that turret. So here I'm kind of going, I'm using more of the flatter ground, but just this hill just a little bit to protect me. I'm trying to stay, like I said, more on like the flatter ground, using the hills just a little bit to protect my hull and just get some shots out, and just being very, very so aware of the surroundings and just trying to see where I can get shots off and utilize my team. So I'm not completely just staying stagnant. I'm kind of moving from the right to the left behind this hill, and I'm really trying to, like take shots and get them off that I can. And I'm trying to see like where the enemy is, and I start noticing that the enemy is now pushing over here on this right hand side. So I need to definitely concentrate and get rid of some of those guys to help our team. And just right there, I mean, I sacrificed some hit points just for that shot, but here I'm like, okay, we're about even here. But that's the thing about the KpfPz, and that's where it can get complicated for a lot of players, is they think it's heavy. It's like, oh, my whole armor's great. Let me just go into like, a town, or let me try side scraping. I mean, you can even see the other KpfPzs I'm coming across, how the armor profile kind of looks and feels. So here I've got two weaker health enemies. Need to get rid of this guy. And I want to push on the weaker ones first to get rid of them. So I'm needing to get out of there as quickly as possible. Now that's just more of a battle tactic rather than just a KpfPz tactic. So he doesn't have a lot of gun depression. Luckily he missed, rams me. And but you can see kind of the maneuverability and a little bit through these two replays how you want to be playing the KpfPz. Like I said, it can be a tricky tank, and you notice that I'm using a lot more of the landscape, and when I am popping out, I do have a little bit of that reliability of my turret, but you can still get pen with the turret, especially when you're facing tier 10 tanks. So using a lot of the landscape, the hills, to try to protect yourself while you're reloading or while you're trying to make decisions on where to go next or your next shot will really help. So hopefully this vid helps. This is the Muffin here. You guys stay cool and keep tanking.